Hi, class. My name is Philip Sinyovsky, and I have chosen to base my CIS9467 business modeling with spreadsheet midterm on baseball statistics, which I have pulled from all time dating back to 1887 all the way through last season's finished year, 2014. In light of the New York Mets making the World Series last week and currently competing, and the Major League Baseball players coming to a near end, I thought it would be interesting to analyze a complete historical data set of baseball statistics to see how the sport has evolved over time. As a diehard Mets fan, just a quick fact, the last time the Mets won the World Series was in 1986, and that came before I was born, so I have not experienced a World Series victory or the success that is going on right now. So I thought this would be an amazing, relevant statistical data set to analyze. There are two sides to baseball, batting and pitching, and because they rely on different statistics to describe their performance, I have chosen to focus only on pitching statistics, due in large part because I have seen firsthand with the Mets how having good pitching can overcome the best hitting teams in the league come playoff time. Something the Mets have exhibited this year is that they have the best pitching staff in baseball with some of the best statistics, ERA, WHIP, strikeouts, wins, and saves to back up their performance. We will see how they turn out. They have just lost game one. Hopefully they can win. But continuing on with this data set, I've pulled 130 years worth of pitching data, and I was able to compile the following views to tell unique stories about the way that the sport has changed. This first view that I compiled is playoff win percentage by team. Using a pie chart to visualize the distribution of playoff win percentage by team, this chart can be sliced into just teams of the American League or teams of the National League for additional granularity, as well as by year. The slicers will be on the dashboard tab, which we'll get to later on, but I just thought it was interesting that the New York Yankees have 16% of all playoff wins of all time. Second is St. Louis Cardinals, and I was curious to see if this was due to having the best pitching or maybe any other reasons that could have led to it. So my next tab shows the two leagues broken down by their pitching performances all time. In baseball, there are 15 teams in the American League and 15 teams in the National League, adding up to a total of 30 teams, and they could be divided on this graph using a combo chart. We compared the all-time stats for each league against each other, focusing on key pitching metrics, ERA, which is earned run average, wins, and strikeouts. This graph in particular can be filtered by team and year, which you will see on the dashboard tab. The next graph that I built out was telling a very unique story. Over the last 90 years, dating back to 1920, this graph right here shows the growth of relief pitcher usage, and also backed up by a secondary metric is saves. These are the two key metrics that relief pitchers could be measured by, and I thought it was fascinating that in 1920, only 44% of pitchers were relief pitchers, but that number has essentially doubled, almost up to 80% in this past decade. If you are a fan of baseball, you could see just by watching firsthand that the game has become dominated by relief pitching. And I thought it was very cool how this graph backed that up. This graph can also be filtered by season or by playoffs, and we'll play around with that on the dashboard. The fourth view that I provided was pitching by playoff round. In the playoffs, there are 5 rounds essentially. There is the National League Conference Series, the American League Conference Series, the World Series, which is the final round, which is what the Mets are in right now, the National League Division Series, and the American League Division Series. I wanted to see if in each round, given pressure and other surrounding factors, do pitchers perform differently, better or worse in the round that they're in? And I thought it was very interesting, and this only backs up the point that in the World Series, when the most pressure is on the line, pitchers pitch their best, as seen on this graph, which is showing ERA in the blue and the secondary stats metric, which takes into account hits, walks, runs, home runs, and strikeouts to kind of gauge how pitchers perform. This second one right here, secondary stats, is very interesting because it's almost a measure of pressure as pitchers who give in to the pressure will end up losing control and giving away a lot of walks and giving up runs essentially and not getting as many strikeouts. I thought that it was very cool how in the most pressure-packed series of all, pitchers performed their best. So this next view, strikeouts by decade, was another story that I was trying to look into and ultimately tell. Over time, the amount of strikeouts per inning, per decade, has also grown significantly, proving that over time, pitchers have become better, throwing faster, getting more movement on their pitchers, and ultimately have become better than the batter in recent years. Finally, the last view that I provided was outs per game by decade. And what this metric is showing is that back in the early 1900s, each pitcher on average was averaging around 20 outs per appearance. And that number has continuously decreased every single decade to right around 7 outs per average appearance by a pitcher, which is 1/3 of what it was when it started. This backs up the point again that relief pitchers have grown in usage. This is my raw data that is compiled. It's about 40,000 rows of every pitcher that has ever pitched in baseball, with all of the metrics that baseball has collected on them. So in this final view, I've combined all of these graphs to produce a dashboard which could be filtered uniquely with a slider to each graph in almost every case. Not every graph has a slider because that wasn't necessary, but let me go over these really fast. First, we have playoff win percentage by team right here, and this one could be filtered by American League or National League, and it's just showing the teams in each league and how they performed in the playoffs, which is backed up by their pitching numbers. In this one over here, American versus National League stats, we're able to filter it by year, as many years as you want, and this also affects this playoff win percentage by team. This first graph, playoff win percentage by team, was a combination of everything else provided on this dashboard, and that's why I've tied the sliders into this graph as well. You could also filter it by team to see if specific teams have performed better or worse. For instance, I've picked Atlanta Braves, and here you could see in the season, they've pitched a lot better with a 4.79 ERA, which is, it's better to have a lower ERA in baseball versus the playoffs when they have a near 7 ERA. Moving down, we have the same graphs that we covered before, growth of relief pitcher. What I wanted to do here was look at playoffs versus season to see if there was any type of a difference in the way that the relief pitcher usage has trended over time. And they both tell similar stories with significant growth this past decade, 2000 to 2010. Going down, there were no other sliders attached to these graphs because they were just one-off views that I thought would be interesting to include to further up the story that pitchers have gotten better over time, relief pitchers have become a more important factor in success, and ultimately they're not lasting as long in their game. So what we have now is the niche pitcher who comes in as a specialist and works on one batter or two. My last view that I gave very quickly, if anyone is interested, they could slide through by year to look at baseball pitchers in total by team, and also summarized up top here how they've done by league. And this is just an overall summary view using Power View to look at statistics sliced by year. It's a very cool end of dashboard summary that you could play around with and figure out any numbers you'd like. Thank you very much. Bye.